Hello, my friend. Welcome to Do Not Talk. Talk about two things you're never supposed to talk about: religion and politics. I'm Charlie Simons. So, Jim Johnson, someone I met just recently with the big statewide Trump train that happened, where several groups, like the group I'm with, Freedom Riders 1776, what we do is we just put American flags and Trump flags and so on our vehicles, and we do convoys. We go all over the place. It's a great group, and it's a lot of fun, a lot of fun. And the best part about it is how we encourage others, maybe who have been sitting back and like, oh, I don't want to say anything, I don't want to do anything, because the media has convinced us that nobody thinks the way we do. Nobody supports the United States of America and is actually feels privileged and honored to even be born in the greatest nation this world has ever known, ever. And nowhere in any kind of grand scale like this has a nation been formed under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And sure, we've gone through some tough history, and sure, we've made some bad decisions, and absolutely, we haven't done things completely right all the time. Imagine that. An imperfect, always looking to create a better union. But we're not perfect. But above everything else, yeah, Trump is my president, but Jesus is my savior. First and foremost, always. And this nation was formed by people who gave credit to the creator of the universe. God is throughout so many of our founding fathers' documents, including our own Constitution, and Bill of Rights, and Declaration of Independence. God is mentioned. The creator. And yeah, I think it's pretty dang cool. I think it's pretty fantastic what we have. And there's a whole lot of people who are trying to destroy it and tear it down. Why? Because they're doing their Father's work just as quickly as possible, for his time is short. It really is that simple. And in our nation now, which started off with, they're just the best, may the best person win. That's how this whole constitutional republic was formed, with that in mind. May the best person win. But it's gotten down to just two parties, two-party rule. On the right, nothing's changed. We're the party of Abraham Lincoln. We believe in liberty and freedom for all. That's what Republicans stand for. And absolutely, we started our nation under a world that accepted slavery and servitude, indentured servitude. The world accepted it. It was just kind of like a way of life. Some people are haves, some are have-nots, and then there's many of us in the middle. And we fought a war against each other to end slavery. No other nation has done that. So every time anybody brings up about, well, your whole country started under slavery. Yeah, we fought a war, and tens of thousands of people died to end slavery. And we affected across the planet the ending of slavery as we knew it then. Of course, it still goes on. It's really prevalent in Islamic countries, very prevalent, still happening, but not in the United States of America. And then there's the other side, the Democrat side. And I know it sounds like I'm saying Democrat as if all Democrats are dumb. But that's just my Bakersfield accent. Do I believe the Democrats are dumb? Yeah, I do. Because you accept really dumb things, hateful things, murderous things as your platform. And you buy right into it. And you accept really bad people telling you how to think. And you fall right in line. And that's dumb. Now, these people who are controlling the shots that Democrats keep voting for and keep putting into tremendous positions of power are not actually Democrats. They're communists. They're Satanists. They're demonic. And they'll do and say whatever it takes to fool you. I'm talking directly to Democrats now. To fool you into making you think that they are one of you. Want to see a good example?
Without voter suppression,
the accent is back.
Stacey Abrams would be the governor of Georgia. Andrew Gillum is the governor of Florida.
First, we saw her develop the magical accent when she was down south.
I'm going to get into some business now. Okay.
And now it's back.
You all helped us win in 2020, and we're going to do it again in 2024.
We're going to beat him in November.
Well, what are you going to do about it?
We all know you don't talk like that. You've been vice president for 4 years.
He does not walk it like he talks it.
She doesn't talk like this.
When we get this done together, my friend.
I know how to talk to you. I mean, come on.
Will I see people testifying? Can I get a witness?
And they know.
Yeah.
We all know she's just a big walking bag of artifice.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
Best rapper alive, Tupac. Are you kidding me? I'm totally part of that whole listening generation of music.
She seems to come forth with some sort of an accent while she's talking to French scientists.
We campaign with the plan. Uppercase T, uppercase P, the plan. We're expected to defend the plan.
What was that?
But that was weird.
Oh, the possibilities are immense. Whatever you want to do, you can do. I eat no for breakfast. Young men of color, black men, it's not just a barbershop.
You know Kamala Harris is Indian, right?
We got these brothers out there. This one brother who's doing a lot of work on space.
You are Indian.
Yes.
My chitti is here. I was just talking with my chitti about this. Go to India for Diwali.
We have to stay woke.
Let's get a ceasefire. There must be an immediate ceasefire.
Like everybody needs to be woke. Just stay more woke than less woke. Leave grandma's medical marijuana alone.
Do you want to put a little of that bourbon?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, go on and put a little
bit.
There you go.
I can't help myself.
I didn't know he could preach like that.
I'd like India to be proud of one of its daughters.
You better thank a union member.
Since when does the vice president have what sounds like a southern accent?
You better thank a union member for sick leave. You better thank a union member for paid leave.
It's just hearing it sounds so ridiculous.
You better thank a union member for vacation time.
Freedom. I also worked at McDonald's.
She's not one of you. She's not a Democrat. She's a communist, a Marxist, a Maoist, a Satanist. And she's talking to you so you can relate to her. So you can be convinced that she's one of y'all. That's embarrassing as heck, isn't it? It truly is. And that's not the first time. I mean, that's just what they do. They're liars, cheats, and crooks, frauds and phonies. Hillary Clinton did that. Every time she was talking in the South, she had a Southern accent. It's horrible. I hope you're really going to put some thought into, and I'm, again, talking, if anybody happens to be watching this who's on the left, and I highly doubt it, But I really hope you put some serious critical thought into who you're going to vote for, whom you're going to vote for this coming November. Our nation's future depends on it. Your future depends on developing a relationship with Christ Jesus as your Lord and Savior, the Son of the Most High God, offering you a plan of salvation just by accepting his gift. I was looking at my dog this morning, and he's getting older, got the gray in the muzzle and the whole thing. And I just went through a couple of months ago losing one of my dogs. Now it's down to just one. And it broke my heart. It hurt me so much. And I was asking the Lord, how long do I get to keep this one? Father, how long do I get to keep this one? I hope I get to keep him for at least a few more years. Because it's so hard to lose something that you become so close to. It's hard to lose. And then the Lord impressed on my mind, I lost my son. I watched my creation torture and murder my son so that you would have a plan of redemption to come back to me. And it humbled me so much and hit me so hard. And I just started praising the Father and thanking him for making that sacrifice. Can you imagine what that must have been like? And watching people reject him now the way they are. But then I meet people like Jim Johnson. He's got a nonprofit that he started up, and his story is an interesting one, and it's called fishnetshareandcare.org. But it's not just feeding people physically with food, but spiritually as well. And he's got an outreach on the high school campuses and so on. And when I met him at this statewide Trump train that we did, it's been like a month and a half ago now. He impressed me so much because he volunteers his time. He's got a whole great sound system. And I was asking him about it. And I just assumed they paid him to be there because it was such a nice setup. It was so well done. But no, this is just what I do. This is one of the many ways I give. That's impressive. I like people like that. And I want to introduce him to you and what he does right now on Do Not Talk. Ready? Hit it.
Yep, here he comes. Riding his trusted steed through the Sierra foothills as he brings you the news. He calls himself
Charlie.
What you doing, Charlie?
Sorry, Charlie.
Hi, Charlie. There you are. Look how cute you are. Yeah.
Hey, Charlie. What's with the dark glasses?
And now, here he is, a man of God, living in a world of Disney.
Ow, Charlie!
Charlie Simons.
Charlie bit me.
I am part of a company that's American-made products, over 400 products at their online store, and they don't do any advertising. It's all word of mouth, and it's naturally derived products. They're big on that, no chemicals, and so am I. I had, plenty of time to put a lot of chemicals into my body during the 80s and 90s before I got saved, and I just don't want to do it anymore. I want to eat better. I want to live better. I want to feel better, and I want to have a better temple. I want to. The word tells us to do that. This is the temple that the Lord has given us, is this body, and we need to be healthy. We need to be healthy for Him to be used however he wants to use us, because we are called according to his purpose. He loves those who, who love him and are called according to his purpose. Jim Johnson is one of those who I know is called according to God's purpose. So you want to join me and get into a healthier life physically, for your home, all kinds of products for your home, food, including grass-fed beef. I get all my vitamins and my supplements from freedomswitchusa.com/Lee. Lee is my middle name. Use that. Go to that website, freedomswitchusa.com/Lee, Lee, and watch that little video presentation from my friend Ron Lyons and get on board. Join me with this and share with others if you like. And it's easy to do. It's like Costco meets Amazon. It's all online. freedomswitchusa.com/Lee. freedomswitchusa.com/LE. All right, cut the music. And now for your dining and dancing pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, Jim Johnson. What's up, Bubba?
Morning. Good to be with you today.
Thank you, sir. So, fishnet. Now, you talk about stockings or what you use to bring fish into the boat?
Yeah, it's Fishers of Men. When I was a youth pastor in Wisconsin, we had a little program. If you led someone to Christ, you got a little a fish, and it was Fishers of Men. And so that's kind of how I got the name Fishnet. And it's bringing people into the lifeboat of Jesus.
It made me think of the time too that Jesus was telling his apostles when they were out on the water and he was on shore and they weren't catching anything. And he told them, pull in your net and cast it on the other side of the boat, on the right side of the boat. And they're like, we've been here for hours. Nothing's going on. We were just about to quit. And he goes, do it.
Yeah,
they did. And the net was so full that they were all hands on deck just to pull all the fish into the boat, and the net never tore. With a weight like that, normally you'd get a tear in the net and then you'd lose so much of the catch. It never tore. So that's what I thought of when I heard the name of your nonprofit, Fishnet Share and Care. No, Fishnet. Tell me again what it is.
It's Jim Johnson Fishnet. Nonprofit is on Facebook. That's my high school outreaches. FishnetShareandCare.org is our food outreach.
FishnetShareandCare.org. In fact, I've got it right here. Let me call it up and we can look at it real quick. Here we go.
Outreach is on Facebook.
Are you seeing it on the screen now? There it is. Fishnet Share and Care. It's basically feeding families and communities in your area. You're in the Bay Area, right?
Right, South Bay, yeah, San Jose.
We've
given away, I think, over $25 million of groceries by the store's numbers.
2,500 people, according to recent studies, including over 100,000 of them being children, rely on food banks and ministries. That's how bad it is, especially in your area, in the Bay Area, where it's just pathetically expensive to live. And the food goes to battered women's shelters, sober living centers, foster group homes, senior centers, unemployed people, and people with health issues and low-income families. I was absolutely blessed to be a part of City Team Ministries when I lived in San Jose and worked on the radio there. That does the same kind of thing, not just feeding, but also with clothing and furniture and so on in their family outreach. You're familiar with City Team?
Yeah, we've worked with them for many years. We've given them a lot of food. They're a great organization. I've also spoken at some of their. Yeah, it's real.
I'm glad they're still going on. They run the mission, the gospel mission, both in San Jose and San Francisco, as I call it. I have not been in the Bay Area for a lot of years now. I live in Northern California, over in the Sacramento area. And so I'm very familiar with what life is like there, though. It's hustling, bustling, crazy, going for everything you can. And it's all about money, isn't it? Because you're right there in the Silicon Valley, too.
Money is the people's God here. but there's like 25% of people, families are food insecure, and they don't always have enough to eat. And my wife was a school teacher in the public school system, and a number of kids would come to school in the morning and be hungry. They didn't even have breakfast because of income problems.
Right. Did you say 25%?
That's what I've read in the paper recently. That 25% of people in Silicon Valley are insecure about food. But not enough. Yeah, we're doing what we can.
And this is their Star Trek utopia that so many on the left are craving and pushing for, to get us out of rural areas, force us out of the mountains, and force us into what they call their 15-minute smart cities. San Jose is one of those experiments. The Silicon Valley, obviously, San Francisco itself, and it is literally a world of haves and have-nots. It's like their little Star Trek utopia where everybody's going to be looking the same and dressing the same and thinking the same way, all part of the Borg, basically. It's the collective thought process of no thought at all other than what we tell you to think through our media, social media being the worst. And that is the capital of it right there where you are. So much of the social media, Google, Facebook, so on. It used to be X, and known as Twitter, until they moved, they left. But the haves and have-nots so severe there. So many people have so much money, and then there is no middle class really anymore, is there?
Well, yeah. When my wife was a teacher, she had kids that came and they said there'd be 4 families living to a house, and their family has to stay on the carpet in a certain area, and that's how people survive here. And then in my neighborhood, the average income is $300,000 a year, and then you have people that are 4 families to a house are just struggling to eat, and so it's a great disparity of haves and have-nots, and with income and. So it's a unique situation, for sure.
It really is. When did you start this? What got it started?
Are you talking about the food or the high school outreaches? You talking about
Sure,
food?
all of it.
Well, there was some big fire in the hills above us. We live in Almaden Valley, and our church gave several $1,000s to the Red Cross. And I went up in the hills, and Cal Fire let me through, and I actually put out some fires, and I found people there living in their cars and tents. And I stopped and said, is anybody up here? Is FEMA up here, Red Cross? They said, no, you're the only person that's been up here to check on us. And I was really surprised. And so I discovered that the money that the church donated never got to the fire survivors, fire victims. And so I started going up there with a few of my friends, and I said, if we want to help them, we should help them directly. If you want to give them money, give them directly. And over time, 230 people got involved with us, word of mouth. I've been up there working 80 days, more than 80 days, and I've worked 3 major fires: the Summit Hill fire, the Loma fire, and the Boulder Creek fire. And so I was up there more recently, but we're still helping people that were burned out and lost everything. A lot of people couldn't get insurance or couldn't afford insurance for their homes, and they just didn't have insurance, and they lost everything. And so we went up there, we started having barbecues and bringing up singing groups and ministering to people and praying with people. And we saw some incredible things happen. And when I first went up there, people were like, what do you want? And I said, I want to help you. And they were very standoffish and leery of me at first. But then as I got to know them, I got a lot of hugs, and people would cry on my shoulder, and it was just incredible. And we're still friends with people to this day, and even from years ago. And so we've made a lot of connections there, and we're still feeding people up there.
You might know something differently, and so you might disagree with what I'm about to say, but I hope you never give another dime to the Red Cross. They have turned into a woke corporate nightmare. And I raised, almost $250,000 after 9/11 for the Red Cross. And then all this stuff started coming out about the money wasn't going to where they say it was going. It was going into their pockets. It was going to other things. It was it was such a waste of time and effort, and it was so disappointing. And you're right. The church is supposed to be reaching out for these kind of things, not some organization that says they're going to.
Well, a lady that worked at Red Cross went to our church, and she says, Jim, she says, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but the money just goes into the general fund. It doesn't go to the people it's intended to. And I was very disappointed in that. But I've discovered, too, that giving people to meet their need opens their heart up to the gospel of Jesus Christ. And it's like when I first went up there, it was a different situation. After I got to know them, started helping them, when I met their need, they would listen to anything I had to say and gave me validity. And it was totally awesome. And so I learned a lesson from that I think the gospel is supposed to be spread to people, everyone, but it helps to meet their need at first, and then they'll listen to you. If they're hungry, feed them. And there's scriptures about being hungry and clothing them. And so the Christian community, the church, is much better off to help people because I think they do it out of giving of their heart and out of love. And the government does stuff, but they are very, it's a different attitude. And it's like it's just not the same. There's not the same caring, and they maybe do it out of obligation or wanting to control people in situations. But the Christian community has a great opportunity to spread the gospel of love of Jesus Christ by serving and helping other people and meeting their need, and then it changes their world.
Absolutely, it does, and changes their eternity as well. That's the best part about it. There's so many. Let's talk about Catholic Charities, which has become what they call an NGO, non-governmental organization. They're down at the southern border, helping people come into the nation illegally. Not only helping them, assisting them, clothing them, doing all these, giving them legal advice and paperwork to be able to cheat the system. They're not doing what I believe is God's work. And because of that, I think a lot of we believers and followers of Christ Jesus have become wary of nonprofits and organizations that claim to do things in the name of God. Have you encountered any of that kind of resistance? Have you had people question you, as you said, when you went up to help those people? They're like, "Why are you here? What do you want?"
No. Well, the people that we've helped were just in dire need. I just looked at them as people that God loved and cared about, and He wanted. And so we were trying to be the hands and feet of Jesus. We're trying to represent Jesus well, and that's what people would say to us. Well, you're the hands and feet of Jesus. And I could tell many stories. There was a veteran up there that didn't get his VA check, and he hadn't eaten for 3 days. I heard about him, so I walked down. I heard where he was staying. His house had got burned out, and he was staying in a camper down in a ravine. And I found a path, and I went down there, and I found his camper, and he was sleeping in there. When I knocked on the camper door, he come out, and he was swearing at me, and he was really upset. And then he said, "What do you want?" And I said, "Well, I brought you lunch," and I said, I heard you were hungry. And then he started to cry, and he hugged me, and then he started telling me all his war stories. It just radically changed the situation because we met his need. And then he went from swearing at me to crying and hugging me. And it's just so drastic change. And it was just this, I think it's a spiritual shift. It's like the gospel and Jesus is about loving and caring about people. And so that's just one example. But the situation, his attitude radically changed when we came there to help him. And so I saw that repeatedly. And
when did you get started doing this with the fire? I mean, what time? What's the time frame? How many years ago?
That was in May of 2008, and it was a Summit Hill fire. And then we worked the Loma fire, and then what's called the CZU fire in Boulder Creek. And there was, in that one, 911 houses burned and about 1,300 structures burned. And that was beyond our capability. to handle all that. We did what we could, but the other fires were smaller, and we were able to make a big difference. And the other fires, there wasn't any. I didn't see any government help or assistance from anybody, so we just kind of took it on.
No, it's all talk. It's all show. It's all fake. I've lived in the mountains. I live in the foothills currently, but I've lived in the mountains many times in my life. And a lot of us have had our homeowners insurance literally cancel on us. They're getting out of California. They can't even afford to stay here. PG&E, seems to have changed everything with all the fires they have started. And then you have your what people call direct energy weapons, which there's been evidence of that going on. And I really believe personally, this is not Jim Johnson speaking. This is Charlie Simons. It's not an accident. The goal is to get us out of the mountains, get us out of rural areas, and force us into cities, into towns, into communities where it's easier control. And that collective mind hive, which seems to permeate so many towns and cities like where you are. I'm sure I'm not telling you anything that you haven't experienced already. But it makes the government God, doesn't it? It takes away the creator. It makes the government their God, where they depend on it from cradle to grave. And I'm sure you've encountered that in the fires you've worked with, where people lost everything and there was no insurance to rebuild.
Yeah, and the government didn't help them either. But and the government,
because the government doesn't want them to go back there.
Yeah, they're trying to get them out of there. Yeah,
Paradise is a fine example. A town I used to live in up in El Dorado County, Grizzly Flats, got devastated and leveled by the Caldor fire. Many of my friends lost everything, and there is no assistance to get back there because they don't want you going back there. They don't want people living there.
I'm not an expert, but I think one of the problems is that the liberals have wanted to save the forest and not do any cutting, and so the forest gets overgrown, and there's so much dead stuff that falls in the ground, and it creates a huge fire when there is a fire. And if they would thin the forest, there would be more materials for building homes for people, and there would be less of a fire danger. And when fire is a natural thing, a part of nature, but trying to stop all cutting and fires has been detrimental in the long run. And I think they're discovering that now. But it'd be better to thin the forests and use the materials to help build more homes.
They may have discovered that. I think they already knew that. But okay, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. And they made a mistake. And now they're discovering that, that wasn't the right way to do things. But they've done nothing to change it. Because their primary goal is to get us out of the mountains and out of rural areas and into towns. I really believe that. And again, that's just me speaking. I'm not talking for Jim.
Personally.
I'm sure you've seen, though, people who have lost everything and they have no recourse, and where do they go? And now you're at a point to where, people say, just leave there. Just leave California. Just leave the area. Just leave the Bay Area. How? They don't even have they might, like you said, that one individual was living in a camper.
Yeah.
It might not even run. Who knows? What do they do? Where do they go? This is where the church has to step up. This is where God's people come in, and people like you. And I think it's fantastic, and I love it. And I thank you for doing it. And I want you to do well. And I wanted to introduce my friends who like the show and watch it and share it. I want to invite them to also share this and let people know about what you're doing, and other groups like that. But we have to be careful too, as believers, don't we, to make sure we're not throwing our money away that the Lord has blessed us with on somebody who's not doing what they say they're going to do. So I know that you do these things, but I also know that your heart is for Jesus ultimately. And that's why you've started a high school ministry. What's that like?
Well, that's been totally exciting. I grew up in a small town in Wisconsin. My grandfather and my dad were pastors. And then I went to, after college, I got married and went to a large church, a mega church in northern Illinois. and we were experiencing a youth revival, and kids were coming in, and I thought things were just going great. And one night the pastor and a deacon elder came in, and the pastor pounded on my desk and he says, "You were hired to work with the kids that grew up in this church, not all these other kids you're bringing in." And so I thought I was doing just great, but they didn't have the same vision that I had. And I thought we're supposed to go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. And our church was next door to a high school, and I wanted to go to the high school there and get connected, and I was prevented from doing that. And so I ended up leaving there, and I went to Colorado, northern Colorado, and I worked at 2 churches at one time, and I had a ministry to University of Northern Colorado, and we had 65 kids coming on Friday nights, and then a new pastor came in, and he said, "Well, that's great, but don't go to the campus anymore. Make the kids come to our church." And that ended it right there. And so I became more kingdom-minded, and I discovered that I was, I'm bragging now maybe, but I was very effective and very good as a youth pastor, and I really loved it. And then when I was way younger, I thought maybe I'd probably be a youth pastor for a few years and then go on and be a lead pastor at a church. But I discovered that teenagers and high school kids were much, much easier to reach than I ever imagined, but I didn't have the backing of the church. And they wanted, what their idea was of youth ministry was childcare for the people that went there and for their kids. And it was like childcare. And I'm like, no, I want to be a youth pastor for the whole town, the whole area, and not just for a few kids. And I went to a church, and they had 12 kids. They sang hymns and sat in the pews, sang hymns with no music. The next week, I brought my guitar, I moved the pulpit, and we sat on the stage, and more kids came. We moved into our house. We outgrew our house, and we moved into a community room, and we were getting big real fast. And I discovered that, hey, some things work here. And then I asked the pastor if we could have one Sunday night a month youth night. And he's like, yeah, that sounds pretty good. So I put an ad in the paper that we had a band coming in. And then the pastor says, well, Brother Jim, is this a rock band? And I said, well, it's contemporary. He said, well, I don't know if the old people will like this. I said, well, let's try it. So the first night I went there, and I got there to church early. All the old people from the church were sitting in the front, and they loved it. And then everything was cool. Everything was okay. And then, so the rest of our time there, every one Sunday night a month was youth night. There was never an empty seat. And I brought a band in. We went to the high school. We had a youth emphasis week, and we had 3-4 nights of youth emphasis. We had 300 kids come. We had kids standing in the side in the overflow room in the lobby. And well, the head deacon, he says, Brother Jimmy, says, we can't do that. And I said, why? He says, well, because we haven't done that before. I said, well, that's not a reason. And then
we can't do that because we've never done that before. Yeah.
It was very effective. And then people were just kind of overwhelmed with all these kids that came in, and they said, what are we gonna do with all these kids? And I'm like, oh, just love them. And it was really cool. But I discovered that there are ways to reach kids. And so I started, when I was in Illinois, I started having Bible clubs in high schools with the kids in my youth group. And then I went to Colorado, and we made connections with the high school there, and it was very positive. And so I've been in San Jose here a long time, and over the years I've connected with 30 high schools, and it's just been absolutely amazing. In a year and a half before COVID, 4,100 kids came to our events, and more than half of them invited Jesus in their heart. And I've been doing this a long time, and so far I've never had a problem. I've been welcomed into schools by administrators. As a school principal here in San Jose said, what you're doing is what our campus desperately needs. A school superintendent said that after the Christian Club started, that violence has gone down, grades have gone up, gang activities down, and he attributed it to the Christian Club, because what happens was where we go, there's a spiritual shift. I've actually seen a spiritual shift in schools where things change because of where we walk, where we bring a presence of the Holy Spirit with us, with God, and that it actually changes the atmosphere of the school. And so far, I've been welcomed in, and people say, well, how do you get into high schools? And I say, the Holy Spirit brings me, and I just walk through open doors, and they're like, huh? But it's true. We've learned some things, but I stopped at a high school here a few years ago, and I prayer walked. I walked around it and prayer walked it. That evening was a Monday night. We went to some friends. We had a prayer group, and I said I'm interested in starting a Christian club at this high school. And to my right was a couple, and they said our son goes there, and he's interested in a Christian club. So on Wednesday at noon, I took their son and some of his buddies to lunch. The next week we started a Christian club, and there was over 30 kids the first time. And then I walked around the school to take pictures of the kids the flyers had put up. And this is after 5 o'clock. It's a big campus. And there's a lady walking behind me that's all dressed real nice. And I said, "Excuse me, do you work here?" And she said, "Well, I'm the principal." And I'm thinking like, well, bingo. And she invited me in. I told her what we're doing. And she said, "Well, set up a meeting with your club leaders." And she said, "I like what you're doing." So we had a meeting with her like a couple weeks later. And she said, "I like what you're doing." She says, "Normally we charge someone outsider like you $199 an hour to be here, but I'm not going to charge you." And she says, "We usually charge extra for a janitor. I'm not going to charge you for the janitor. You can have any buildings you want." So we picked the big multi-purpose room for our meal. And then we picked the theater for our worship concert. And then we had one of the 49ers come and speak, and we had a youth band. And she said, "I like what you're doing." She said, "In fact, I'm going to make the reservation for you, so I'm sure you have it." And so we have favor like that. And it's just been incredible. And so there's 100,000 high schoolers, about 100,000 high schoolers in San Jose. There's 42 high schools, and I haven't been to all of them yet. I would like to be with them someday. But over the years, I've connected with about 30 schools total, and I'm continuing to reach out to more schools. And it's just been totally awesome. And when I go to schools, well, one pastor here, he says, what do you say to the kids? And I said, "Well, I present Jesus. I talk about Jesus, but I said I try to stay off the stage. I have the Christian kids to speak, and we have youth worship bands, and I have tried to get the kids to do everything, and I'm always ready to speak, but I try to stay off the stage and put the kids, because I figure the students at the school would rather hear their peers than me." And it's been totally phenomenal. And we were at a high school here, and I had 6 student speakers lined up. And this girl comes up to me. She says, "Can I be first? I'm scared." And I said, "Do it scared." And she laughed, and she did it. And she did real good. And then she wasn't scared anymore. What we're trying to do is we're trying to make leaders of young people. When they go on to college, they can be leaders in Christian groups and clubs there. And then we're trying to make leadership in when if they go to church, their neighborhood, their job, their families. We're trying to make disciples where they do something, and we're not trying to make spectators. We're trying to make people that act when they're young to do something. And when people are young, like teenagers, they're determining their values and their opinions and lifestyles, and so they're very impressionable. And it's been, when I go and talk to schools, you can hear a pin drop. They just freeze. They're focused on me because I'm telling them stuff that they've never heard before in their life. And one pastor said, "Oh, that's a bad idea," because he says people think you're trying to get their kids to go to a different church. I'm like, no, these kids don't know anything. They don't know David and Goliath. They don't know Daniel and lions, and they're heathens. They don't know anything. And so when I talk to them, they're just very interested, because I'm telling them, it's life. It's what life's about, and they focus on it because they've never heard it before, and it's just been totally phenomenal. And I've visited a number of churches in our town, and I'm not saying that there's no teenagers, but I've visited many of them, and there's not more than a handful of teenagers in churches, and then that makes me sad. And I'm not blaming anyone, but the thing is, I went to a church here that claimed 14,000 members. I went to the high school group in an 800-seat auditorium, and there was 8 kids in the front row. And I'm like, this is not okay with me. I'm thinking that because if we don't, all souls are important, but if we don't reach the young people, there's not going to be a church in a few years, because when they grow up and take over, if they don't have Christian values, society changes, and the church can die out. Like, I think it was Reagan that said, we're always one generation from losing our democracy. Well, we're also one generation from losing a generation of people that that we would like to see Christians and are in charge of industry and business and government, and we need to influence them while they're young. And so it's one thing to do rehab and help people when they get into a lot of trouble, Alcoholics Anonymous and stuff. But I'm trying to help kids before they get into trouble. Before I'm trying to influence them to make right decisions while they're young, and that they won't mess up later on in life. And so that's what this is about.
You know why I believe these mega churches don't have a teen outreach? There's no money in it.
Well, that's it. The kids don't bring in money, and the thing is, churches. I'm not against churches, but they will.
I'm against those churches.
What's that?
Absolutely, I am against those churches. You said I'm not against churches. I'm against those churches who are all in it for the money. And you told some very chilling experiences and things that happened to you where it was very successful, this teen outreach, and it was reaching them for Christ Jesus, but the big churches weren't interested in it because it wasn't making them any money. It was costing them money, and that's why a lot of the mega churches don't offer a singles ministry anymore too, because there's just really no money in it for them. They don't care. It's all about the money, and I'm against those churches.
Well, yeah, when I go to schools, I've had complete freedom. We were at a school last December, and there was 800. The same school a few years ago, we had almost 800 show up, and that was during school hours. And when we make an invitation, we give a message. When we make an invitation to follow Christ, it's like 95% of the kids or more will stand or raise their hand and invite Jesus in the heart. And this is public schools in California during school hours. And so this is incredible. Stuff has happened that years ago I could only have dreamed of, and this is actually happening. And I sent you pictures. I don't know if you can put that on your podcast, but there's pictures of students standing and accepting Christ and coming to the meetings. It's just it's been incredible openness and response to the gospel of Christ. It's just been incredible, and I'm thankful that I'm being able to be a part of it.
I'm thankful that you followed that prompt from the Lord and actually have done it and are doing it. How can we help? How can we get involved?
Well, there's some links on my Jim Johnson Fishnet nonprofit. There's links to Zelle. There's also QR codes for PayPal, GoFundMe.
You're talking about on Facebook. You're talking about?
Yeah, there's a donate button also on fishnetcareandshare.org. But there's many ways to give it. There's also Fishnet PO Box 41034, San Jose, California 95160. And
well, where we're live right now on Facebook and YouTube, people aren't ready to write stuff like that down. So you might want to say it again a little more slowly.
Okay. Fishnet PO Box 41034, San Jose, California 95160.
Beautiful. I think it's great. And go ahead.
We could use funding for. I have a ministry van that's falling apart. I've had to put like $5,000 in repairs on it, and the roof leaks, and the dash lights don't work. The gas gauge doesn't work, and so there's a need for that. But also we buy lunches for kids, and when you give them a free lunch, well, let me tell this quick story here. There was a school here that 4 kids started a religious club, and then some Christians heard about it, and one of the boys that went to it had a grandmother in a prayer group that I was familiar with, I was friends with, and he told his grandmother, we don't have time to go to the Christian club and to lunch. There's not enough time. And so one of the guys went to my church who was in this prayer group. He calls me up. He says, Jim, he says, the kids over here can't go to lunch in the Christian club. Do you think you could bring them lunch? I'm like, absolutely. So all of a sudden we started bringing them free lunch. All of a sudden there's 80 kids every week. And I got to, I would speak there whenever I could or whenever I wanted. And I, gave a message and how many want to follow Jesus? And most of the kids raise their hand and do the sinner's prayer. And so it's just been phenomenal, and the openness has been incredible. I would like to be able to hire full-time people that just work discipling and training leaders on the high school campuses. And also when we do worship, I have kids bands that I use, and I would like to hire someone that doesn't go and do worship, but this person would train worship and raise up worship bands at every high school that we're in, where the kids do it. And so I have a lot of equipment, and I have smoke machines and lights and sound systems. So I make it a big deal, and the kids that participate on stage, they take it very seriously. It's like they're big time rock stars. And so the reason is they take it really serious. And I also try to give every kid a job. And I was at a school last December, and I had my smoke machine, and I turned it off automatic, and I put it on manual, and I handed a kid a remote, and I said, you're in charge of the smoke machine. And he was just all excited to do that. And then I have lots of lights that change colors and move in different shapes and designs. So I had 3 lighting controllers, and I have kids doing the lighting where they can do that. And so they're involved, and they're helping me set up and tear down and stuff. And then I have a sound system, so I have kids running the sound, and I'm a few feet away in case there's a problem. But I have the kids involved, so they own it. They think they're a big part of it. And so I get them involved. And when I was a youth minister, I had tried to give every kid a job. We had a climate control team that would look for kids that were new or weren't talking to anyone. We had kids running sound and media and video. Then we had a worship band, and then kids would rotate through there. And some of those kids, I would help them learn a chord or tune their guitars, and they became better players than me, and they became worship pastors eventually. And then we had a cheer team. And the cheer team, we would come up with motions for songs, and so we would have it was cool to be on the cheer team, and then they were up front doing motions, and then we'd go into slower worship songs, and they'd go into like praise and worship, and teenage boys would do that and follow. We had teenage boys crowding the stage into worship, and when you can get teenage boys worshiping, I think that's pretty cool.
Absolutely. This is amazing. You live in such an expensive area, and so much of what you're doing right now is just all volunteer. I don't know if you get paid through the nonprofit, but what's your day job? How do you support? How are you staying fed and your family taken care of?
Well, when we were in Colorado, we worked with a church that built a big new church, and they couldn't afford to pay anybody. And so there was 4 pastors, 3 pastors left. My wife and I stayed with the church, and I had a friend that was doing a snack food business, like a Casa de Fruta. I don't know if you ever know what those are.
Oh, sure.
And
I remember Casa de Fruta, absolutely.
But I'm a mobile store to companies, and it's done well for me. And I just started my 44th year, and so but it is hard because I do take a lot of time off work doing charity work and the high school ministry and stuff. And so it is very challenging. We're surviving. I work a lot. I work hard, and but I could do more if I had more support. And I'm probably not real good at asking for support, but
that's where guys like me come in. I'll be glad to ask for you. And I think it's fantastic. I just feel honored to have even met you and gotten to work with you at that event and hear your story just a little bit. And at the end of the weekend, I said, I want to have you on my show. Well, what are we going to talk about? You. What are we going to talk about? You and the Lord and what the Lord's doing through you. I think it's fantastic. Jim Johnson, Fishnet, careandshare.org, right?
Yeah, on Facebook, Jim Johnson, Fishnet Nonprofit.
Okay.
And there's lots of ways to donate. And,
I really hope I want you to do well, and I want to continue to help any way I possibly can. All right.
I appreciate very much. And down in Paso Robles was a lot of fun.
That was cool, wasn't it? That was a great event. Thank you, buddy. And there you go. Just wanted you to meet him and hear what he's doing. And there are many like him, but the media never talks about them. They always go to the big corporate monoliths like Red Cross and promote that over and over again. You notice they never hear them talk about the Salvation Army, because that's a Christian organization. They don't promote that in the media. They don't promote that in the world. So when you find somebody like Jim who's doing the Lord's work, obviously, absolutely, I'm all in. I want to help any way I possibly can. And you can help this show too, if you like, at venmo.com/do not talk. Venmo.com/do not talk. May God bless you and keep you. May God bless America. But most importantly, America, bless God